Hello, this is Miss Lee Russell, and today's presentation is for Business Math B, and it is going to be on miscellaneous business costs. And we're going to be looking at travel expensing and trading costs for a business. As you know, in a business, there are many expenses that you've got to keep in front of you and watch. Payroll, your building or your site where you're hosting your business, utilities and phone, your inventory or equipment, and of course if you're selling a product, your inventory is going to be larger than if you have a service business. Hiring expenses to bring in new employees, which is what we talked about on the previous presentations. Marketing. Marketing is one of those things that's ongoing. You have your human resource department and your accounting. And then we have what's called hidden expenses. Hidden expenses are those expenses that oftentimes people don't think about when they first start a business. They're not remembered, but they are substantial, so you definitely want to consider those. Both travel and training are often hidden expenses that exist in any business. Travel expenses are the expenses that are used for any approved business meeting that may not be on site. And depending on the business, it may or may not include lodging, meals, and gas. So in math, the way we write a formula for that for travel expenses, it's basically you do a summation of all those things. So you're going to add up your transportation costs, your meals, and your lodging costs. Businesses sometimes regulate the limits on those or the amount of dollars with the transportation. A lot of times companies will calculate a certain dollar amount and you multiply that by the number of miles that you've traveled. Usually for all of these, you need to provide receipts. So the meals are usually calculated by adding up the receipts covered on the dates of the approved meeting. Lodging is the same way. It's determined by the number of nights and you multiply it by a hotel rate. Often, again, it's specified rate by the business. Most important is remember if you're going to expense off travel expenses or you're an employee at a business, whether you're a business owner or employee, you need to keep those receipts. Those are pretty much required. Okay, so now we're going to do a travel expense example. There are some of these in your checkbook, in your workbook, so you'll see some similar to this, so you'll have an idea of how to do this. So this first one is something that I felt like you could relate to. Primavera High School is having travel expenses for their teachers so that the teachers can travel to remote locations to administer the Ames test. Miss Susie drove 610 miles round trip and can be reimbursed 32 cents per mile. Her other expenses were $6.50 in totals, $260.40 per night for 2 nights in a hotel. And her meal receipts were $16.95, $10.58, $11.56, and $17.84. What were her total travel expenses? Okay, so we've got our formula in front of us as a guide. So first we're going to take the transportation, 610 miles. And can you see what is the amount per mile being paid? Yes, that's right. So you're going to take the 610 and multiply it by the 32 cents Remember that decimal stays in there, 0.32. Next, I did lodging next just because it's a little bit shorter. So you've got 2 nights, and the lodging amount is correct, $260.40. And what are we going to do for the meals? Yes, we're going to add all 4 of those meal receipts up. And then we've got a toll fee. Some businesses will cover this and some won't. Typically, if it's needed to get to your destination, the median businesses will cover it. So I've added the toll fee at the end of this. So now we just have to do the math. Okay, I want you to look at the dollar amounts that were given for this travel expense. And I want you to think about, if you were a business owner, what would you notice about these travel expenses? A lot of times HR, someone in HR handles this. I would do a quick check to make sure that the mileage looks normal for the area that the teacher was sent to, 610. And then I kind of noticed that the lodging, it's pretty expensive for one night of lodging, almost $300. So I definitely would check that receipt. And I think if I had a lot of employees coming in with $300 a night hotel bill, I would probably set a limit, a cap limit, $150 a night, unless there was no other hotel in the area, because that's pretty high. Okay, and 4 meals for 2 days, that's reasonable. So think about this if you were a business owner, what you'd be watching for. Okay, now we're going to shift to training costs. Training costs are going to include the time the employee presents the training, the development of the training materials, the actual materials themselves, the cost for those, and the salary of the new person that's not yet working, but they're in training. So in math, the way we write that formula for training cost, it's called cost of release time. That is actually the time that an employee is using to spend on training. And then the cost of the instruction, which includes materials and supplies, and then any additional costs associated with them. Training is pretty much a necessity. It's ongoing in any business. So it is something that needs to be looked at carefully. Sometimes when people are sent to training, it's off-site, so it's a little more focused. And when that happens, the additional costs can be included. Businesses will usually cover meals, materials, and supplies. We recently had a teacher development training. Most schools and school district students, where they take a week or 2 out of the year, and they just have us go to classes to learn new techniques, new information, and it's off campus. So the businesses and schools cover that, cover for teachers to be there, cover for our meals, which is really nice. It's a great benefit. Okay, here's a training cost example. Again, you'll see something similar to this in your workbook at Checkpoint. There are 3 employees that are attending a computer system training seminar for 2 days. The travel for each employee, I should say travel expense for each employee, is $982. The additional expenses were the release time of $320, instruction $85, meals $100, and supplies were $425. What is the total training cost for the business? And now remember, this is only for 3 employees for 2 days. Okay, we're going to put our formula in front of us again. Total training cost is equal to cost of release time, cost of instruction, and additional costs. Okay, in this case, the additional cost would be any meals, supplies, and travel expenses. Do we have any of those in this particular scenario? Yes, we do. Yes, exactly. You can see the travel expense for to fly to where their training is. You can also see the instruction and the meal costs up there. So now keep in mind we're talking for the meals, $100, but there are 3 people and it's for 2 days. So it's $100 a day for 3 people in 2 days. So you can see we did 100 times 2. Same thing with the supplies, and same thing for the travel. Now the only thing is, keep in mind I'm traveling, you're not going to travel every day, so there's just 3 full times the travel. You can kind of see how business math is a little bit more logic oriented, because logically this makes sense. Just you've got to transition from understanding the words to the formula and then putting in the numbers. But you can see here, this is a pretty wordy problem. The math itself is not difficult, just multiplying and adding. So it's really the logic and sorting through the words. And a lot of times there's a lot of new vocabulary. That's really the difficult part. So you just have to kind of slow down. You're actually using a different part of your brain than you would use for algebra. You just have to kind of slow down, be patient with yourself. Okay? So when you do the math, it's very basic. You can see here, we get the meals, and then we get the supplies and the travel amounts, and you just add those 3 amounts together. Now that's our additional cost. Okay? Now we need to go back and look at the total training costs again. And we need to look at the release time. Okay, so these employees are paid $320 a day. There's 3 of them, and they're gone for 2 days. So the company's actually paying their salaries to those 3 people the 2 days they're gone. So we need to add that up. And then they're also paying for the class that they're attending. So that's $85 times 2. And now we add in the additional costs. So you can see there's the totals again, basic amount. Yeah, I want you to enjoy these last short video clips. And remember, if you're attending this class live, you get full credit. And if you're watching the video, you need to complete the 5 questions and be sure to email these to me. I do not want these sent in a message. So your answers to your questions need to be messaged. Thank you for attending and have a great day.